Okay, class, I know you've just been listening to me talk, but I have this video. Normally, when I do this lesson, I have my wife show up in class, but now she's a middle school teacher over at Glasgow, right across the street. So she can't take off 2 days to do this lesson with me for my classes. But I thought it'd be a fun idea to bring her in and let her talk to y'all because she's got a more personal account of this material. Now, we've been talking about the raping of Nanjing and talking about Indonesia and how originally they're welcomed as liberators to Indonesia, but it soon turns bad. And one of the victims of it is going to actually be my wife's grandmother, who's going to tell about uh, Japanese occupation. So, real fast, this is Miss Waldrop, and Miss Waldrop is going to tell you about her grandmother and her life during Japanese occupation.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I cannot be there. I wish I could. My grandmother is was named Ocha Tusmai. She was born in October 16, 1928. Her parents died when she was very little. She have two other sisters. She's the middle child. She have two other sisters and a nanny that lived with her. So her father, so my great grandfather, used to work for the Dutch, and he have a pretty good standing with them. He saved a lot of food during the Dutch occupation, so they do have some food in the house. So when the Japanese took over, her eldest sister already moved out of the house.
And
So
how old was this? How old was she at this point?
she's a teenager, 14 years old.
Okay.
So she was 14. Her sister, I think 11. They're about 3 years apart, if I'm not mistaken. So it was her younger sister, and this nanny. So during the Japanese occupation, it was horrible. When it was in Dutch occupation, it was bad, but it's still kind of normal. Kids still go to school. My grandmother and my grandfather speak Dutch fluently. So, although they are definitely set back in education and life in general, but it's not torture. While in Japanese occupation, it feels like torture.
Yeah, I know. We're getting to the.
Okay, you're gonna edit this, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so during the Japanese occupation, my grandmother and her sister and the nanny kind of used the food that was saved up during the Dutch occupation. When the Japanese took over, my great grandfather and my great grandmother both passed away, so they're on their own. But they were pretty lucky because a lot of people at that time are starving to death. They don't have food. Most of the food are made by the Indonesian people. We're agricultures, so a lot of the food that was made by the Indonesian was taken away from them and was used for the Japanese troops. So during the day, they have to stay hidden. This is the part that's really horrible and terrifying. The greatest fear for women at that time, I said woman, kids, girls at that point, was for them to get kidnapped or raped by the Japanese soldier. A lot of women at that point is kidnapped and stored in like barracks and just used by the Japanese soldier. It was horrible. They were called the Jaganyanfu, or comfort women. Again, we say women, but a lot of these, they ran out of women because most of them died, of disease and torture. So they start kidnapping children. She saw one of her neighbor friend that was only 10 years old being raped on the street
At 14 years old, she witnessed
at
this.
14 years old.
Ooh. I can't even imagine.
So a lot of people, a lot of the Japanese soldier, although they do get food from the Indonesian people from the farming, they often still raid the Indonesian houses to raid for food. And when that happened, my grandmother, well, her nanny will make my grandmother and my grandmother's sister to hide in the wardrobe, and they will pray to God. They were very religious, and they will pray to help so the Japanese soldier is blinded and not see them there. So about a year after that, she's only 15. What is that? Eighth graders? Ninth graders?
Yeah.
When she was ninth graders, she worked at a hospital to help with the sick. She have a very lovely voice, so she would sing to get some food, money for food, and she even donated to the resistance. And this is when she met my grandfather. So my grandfather name is Abdul Majid Anwar. He joined the resistance when he was really young. He was 17.
17 years old. He's fighting almost an unwinnable war against the Japanese.
Yeah.
Wow.
With sharpened bamboo.
Wow. Sharpened bamboo against guys with assault rifles.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he joined the Freedom Fighters when he was a teenager. He was 17. And he was in and out of jail because he kept getting caught and because he resists the Japanese. And my grandmother married him when he was in jail. So the group that my grandfather was in is called Putra. This organization finally was started by the Japanese government themselves. They were supposed to be a group that intended to promote support for Japan as being the liberators of Indonesia from the Dutch. But the original name was called the AAA, Cahaya Asia, which means the light of Asia. Pelindung Asia means the protector of Asia. Pemimpin Asia means the leader of Asia. And the Nippon that you see there, it means Japan. A different word. So Putra itself is called the Core People Power Organization. Putra in the word, it means the sons, S-O-N, like the children. So the leader of Putra is Sukarno, which will be our first president of Indonesia.
And to kind of give a context, that would almost be like their version of George Washington.
Yeah, he signed the Declaration of Independence.
Right. I mean, he's a guy that, like Washington, he's fighting an unwinnable war. Now, like Washington, who'll get help from the French, he kind of gets a major lift of help when the United States dropped the atomic bomb at Pearl Harbor. I mean, at Hiroshima.
Yeah, so now it's 2022. A lot of things has happened. The views of Japan is very different. My grandfather died when I was in middle school, but I still remember he's not a big fan of Japan, which I totally understand. Like, I don't know what they did to him when he was in jail.
Right.
I bet it's not fun time.
Right.
But he knows a little bit of Japanese. I remember he used to sing Kokoro no Tomo.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
It's a Japanese song.
Okay.
So it's been 80 years. Some people still don't like Japanese, but a lot of the younger folks, they view Japan very differently. The Japanese government do send a lot of helps to Indonesia, especially in education. So they will come and pick a few of the teachers or professors, send them to Japan to study a few years, and then send them back to Indonesia. And also they offer grants for a lot of the schools as well. I remember when I was younger, this is probably the last people that still survived the Japanese occupation. They invited them and apologized of what the Japanese did long time ago.
Yeah, so I want to thank Ms. Waldrop. Thank you for coming. And, basically to kind of bring this home, and of course you're probably seeing me say this live in class, but a horrific experience for the Indonesian people. It's, they were occupied by the Dutch by what, 400 years?
350 years.
Yeah, 350 years. And I mean, obviously they don't love being occupied, but there isn't that bitterness that existed from the very brief occupation from Japan, just due to how horrific that occupation was. So I want to thank Miss Waldrop for coming in and helping me out today. And this will be the last slide for the lecture, and now it's going to be time to climb. So back to live me in class.